Yeah, the frenzy on this street, on this one store, has died down. It got very bad, though, before it was over. Last time we talked, it was just starting to shift, but then a number of young men began to push their way to the front. They were armed with sticks. They were armed with 2x4s with nails hammered into them. There were young men with large knives, with screwdrivers, whatever they could grab, and they began to fight amongst themselves. If one person would steal a sack of candles or whatever else they were able to take from the store, a group of 4 or 5 young men would descend on him in a gang and start beating him. We saw one young man being whipped by a belt that caused a large amount of blood to come from his arm. A little boy was caught in the melee right outside the store. Young men on top of the store who had been sort of controlling the flow of loot from the store began throwing large stones down into the crowd. They're now firing up into the air. Some Haitian police officers, I don't know if you could hear that on the phone that I'm on. They're just trying to disperse what's left of the crowd. Essentially, the store is now completely looted. But as I said, they began to throw stones, or rocks, I should say, large rocks into the crowd. I think a little boy was hit in the head because he collapsed down on the street in the midst of the crowd in a pool of blood, and he was able to be pulled away. But it's largely dispersed now, but it's, the crowd has actually now just moved literally half a block away to another store. Oh, excuse me. All right, they're just firing very close to my head, but they're firing up in the air, and it's Haitian police officers. This is not the crowd. The crowd itself at this point does not seem to be armed with any actual real firepower, and most of the police have barricaded themselves around one center of stores. Okay, now 2 Haitian police officers are running into this other crowd that is now around another store about half a block away. Since they're going to maybe fire into the crowd a little bit more, they're trying to push them. They basically now secured an intersection in downtown Port-au-Prince, but the crowd now, I mean, there's maybe 200 to 300, again, more shots, and there's more shots. They're now, an entire crowd of several hundred people is now running down toward the port area. But the way this works is, I mean, the Haitian police fire into the air for a little bit, and then the crowds quickly come back because there's just not enough police officers. There are literally 2 police officers in this entire, from what I can tell, 4-block radius of downtown Port-au-Prince, and they're being employed by an American businessman who owns 2 stores here, and he had just hired them to try to keep his stores safe. He literally armed them with automatic weapons. He gave them water. I imagine maybe he's paying their salary for the day. I'm not sure about that. But that's there's not a police
Anderson,
on.
Anderson, earlier we heard the gunshots. We actually have pictures of those. The police firing into the air. They're doing it now a little more frequently. What's the effect on the crowd when the police fire their weapons?
The video you're seeing is like video that I shot on my small camera about 40 minutes ago. The effect, well, you probably see it for yourself. The crowd, ducks. They disperse. They get scared. But within a minute, they are back. If there are items still to be looted in a place, there's virtually nothing the police can do because there's just not enough police. I mean, literally 2 police officers here. It's like whack-a-mole. As soon as you turn your back and move somewhere else, people come back to where they were before. This little boy who got hit in the head. He's now. I actually picked him up from the crowd and ran him to the relatives. Picked him up and brought him to the relatives behind the barricade, but his blood is gushing from his head. It's all over me.
Anderson, this is the boy you're talking about that got hit by the rocks that were being thrown?
Yeah, a stone. I don't know if it was one rock or a stone. I saw one man on top throwing a stone. I don't know if that's the stone that hit this little boy, but nobody was helping him. They were just, they started to run away because people were throwing rocks, but they were just leaving this little boy.
Anderson, what's the sense of what, I mean, I know it's hard to make out if people are just taking everything that's in the store, but is there some sense that it's goods that are being taken for people's own consumption, or is there some sense that this is being sold immediately? Or can you tell?
No, I mean, this is literally being sold from the store. I mean, the guys on the roof control the flow of the candles. They're the ones who are actually taking this stuff. And then they are literally selling it right there. Women come up with crumpled money, negotiate a price in amidst this crowd screaming, and hand over cash. And so it is a very rudimentary form of business. It's the kind of real life business we're seeing here now on the streets of Port-au-Prince, and those women will take it and then resell it elsewhere in the city where people are desperate to have some sort of candles, and because there's no electricity. So it's business, and this is not something which is acceptable behavior to most people in Port-au-Prince. Just a few blocks from here, as I was running here, I guess it was about an hour and a half ago, there were people kind of shaking their heads and saying, this is not right. These people are looting. This is not starving people who need food. These are young thugs who are breaking into businesses to profit.
Anderson, any sense around you of normalcy? You're obviously, the pictures we're seeing that you've shot show a downtown that is, stores are closed up, people are looting. Is there any sense of normal functioning society and business around you?
No. There's nothing normal here. There's nothing normal.
And are you still seeing the same situation that you were reporting on last night, where there was still some concentration on people moving coffins and bodies, or are you in a different part of the city where it does seem to have shifted over to this?
The bodies the visible bodies have largely been connected. I mean, I drove by a pile of bodies yesterday, but you see that less and less. The bodies that were out on the streets have largely been picked up by bulldozers, put into dump trucks, buried in mass graves, or dragged through the streets, maybe put in a coffin, dragged in a wheelbarrow or a blanket,
and
shoved into old crypts into the cemetery. You still smell bodies. There's bodies all around, but they're crushed in rubble, underneath rubble. The reason I'm even here is because I came down to a building where I believe there's an American woman whose body is in rubble still, and we've handed over we know her name. We've handed her name over to the State Department. We don't know if her family's been notified, so we're obviously not going to say her name. But that's the reason I was in this area, and then I heard the shots, and of course I ran right in this direction. But I mean, things normal here. There was just a crowd of men whipping whipping another man with belts. He was bleeding in order to grab a sack of candles. There was just a crowd who allowed a little boy to
Wow. Like you said, Anderson, there's nothing normal there. All right, Anderson, we'll keep checking in with you. Stay safe in the streets of Port.